Hello and welcome to Unify's webinar on Unify Q for Business Intelligence and Information Sharing. This is your host, Matt Brunquell, and I'll be introducing our speaker today, Martin Tietz, in just a moment. But before we do that, just a few housekeeping items. First of all, this is an interactive webinar. We'd like you to ask questions. So if you have any, use your Q&A button on your WebEx toolbar, and that's the one with the little question mark on it. We also have a chat on there as well, but we prefer you just use the Q&A. It just makes it easier for Martin and I to coordinate answering all the questions and make sure we get to all of them. And just a moment on, for those of you that are fairly new to Unify, the host of today's webinar, what we're about. We're a publicly traded software company, and we've been in business for 27 years now, and we're kind of known for being the first to deliver a relational database in the Unix environment. But since then, we've delivered development software products that run across many different databases and platforms, really geared towards building and modernizing business applications, and really geared towards those business application developers, letting them focus on solving the business problems without having to do a lot of low-level coding for the plumbing underneath. And today, what we're really all about is maintaining that kind of ease of use without having to do the low-level coding, but also because we've had customers who've been with us for 15, 20 years, many of them still running applications that they've built that long ago. We're all about modernizing these applications and carrying them forward. So folks that started their applications with us in that Unix host-based environment, we've given them the ability to modernize those applications forward into client-server and into the web and into service-oriented architecture. Now today, we're really excited to be talking about Q because we're kind of taking those concepts for the geared at the business application developer and trying to offer something as well to the end user base as well, something that gives them the ability to do their information sharing and ad hoc query and reporting from a very high level point of view without having to get into the low level stuff. And the person we're going to have presenting that today is Martin Tietz, which is really, really great. Martin is our product manager for all of our database and development products. He's been with us for over 10 years. If any of you have been to our DevCons or just been in our customer base for any period of time, you've probably seen Martin present or spoken with him or chatted with him online. He's always out there mixing it up with our customers, trying to see what their requirements and needs are and deliver on it. And this Q product came about for a majority of thanks to Martin and him driving this idea forward for the customer base. So really excited to have him presenting this today. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Martin for the presentation.
Thank you very much, Matt. Thanks for the nice words. This presentation I'm going to give today is basically split into two parts. And in the first part, I want to give you some ideas on what people actually can make sense out of Q, how they would use Q, and what product offering of Q we do offer for you. And in the second part of this presentation, I'd like to show you Q in detail, see what you can do with it, connect to a variety of databases from SQL-based Oracle, SQL Server, so you can see how ad hoc querying, report design, and information sharing can work today. Let me start with the introductory presentation here. So in that presentation, I want to talk about Q, the business intelligence and information sharing tool. Talk a bit about who needs Q, and probably more important, give you some usage scenarios of what you can do with Q or what several people or groups of people can do with Q. I'm pretty sure you will have other ideas too that you would like to use Q for. Then talk a bit about the features of Q, the flavors of Q. By flavors of Q, I mean the ways how how queue can be configured, how queue can be actually bought from us in different ways. I will let you know that. I will talk about queue pricing and about buying queue. Actually, queue, let's start from the end and talk a little bit about buying queue. Queue is actually the first product we have that starts with an additional online sales strategy. So when you install a trial version of queue, you will see a trial notification dialog when you launch queue that will tell you your trial version is valid for X more days. And there will be a purchase button there that you can click, and it will redirect you to the Unify online store where you can purchase a license of queue. If you do that, you will be getting an email with a license number and PMC, and you can upgrade the trial installation to a full product. But that does not exclude that you can also buy queue through the sales channel you know from Unify. Your Unify sales representatives, Unify partners worldwide will also be able to supply you with queue licenses. Okay, let's start with this here. So, what is Unify Queue about? Actually, these three areas are important: query management, ad hoc queries, build, save, execute, and share database queries. Report management, build, save, execute, and share database reports. And all that, the whole idea of queue, and also the product name somewhat refers to the past of a product that has been there maybe almost 15 years ago, which was called Quest, and it was a 16-bit end-user product that did similar things to queue, only that it was 16-bit. It used a completely different user interface approach. And there were different file formats on vogue at these times where file formats you wanted to export and import data to and things like that. So all that has been modernized in a modern GUI tool, and these three areas, query, report, and information sharing, are the main things one can do with Unify Queue. Who are the Unified target users? The Queue target users, excuse me. The mid-tier managers, information workers, IT managers and IT personnel, developers, of course. I think the largest group probably are the application end users, and for those we also have an interesting offer, or actually for the people that supply applications to end users, we have an interesting offer that I will talk about in this presentation. So what do mid-tier managers and information workers, what can these guys do with queue? Those are pretty much one group of people that needs to, in their day-to-day work, needs to gather facts, either for their management for them to be able to do good business decisions, or for themselves to provide data points or to make decisions on their own based on latest revenue numbers from the online store, from marketing campaigns and things like that. So these people will be enabled to provide business intelligence, and they can share that business intelligence with colleagues and management, but also not only with colleagues and management, but also with external agencies or with customers, if you like. So here's, let's say, kind of workflow diagrams. I've created some of those workflow diagrams of tasks that can be done with queue. You can create a new query, and that query can run on an Oracle database. You can then, based on that query, create a report in queue, print that report as a PDF file, and share that report by email. Or exchange data. You can create a new query from a SQL Server database, save that query as a new table in a SQL base or any other database, and then export that data to Excel, XML, text, HTML, the supported formats here. Of course, you can also do the export immediately. You don't have to create a table in SQL base in between. I'm just mentioning things you can do with queue. Sometimes there are more steps than probably you need, just to explain you what things queue can do. Queue in IT departments. Update non-integrated internal systems. Integrate data pools after company mergers. Interesting tasks. So you have a CRM system from the board company and one of the owning company, and you want to get the data of the board company into the CRM system of the owning company. You might load all that data in an intermediate database, manipulate that so that it matches the target database, and do things like that. That's one of the things I think MIS will be tasked to do with Q. MIS might be tasked with other things like reports for management, website statistics, marketing campaign results, or whatever other data needs to be analyzed and provided to the executives. Update, insert, and delete data from databases. I would call that data maintenance. Like, I don't know, yearly you want to delete the data that has been created longer ago than 2 years or something like that. So delete histories that doesn't need to be maintained anymore. And of course, export and import data is something important for IT departments as well. So again, a workflow here. You can open a table in SQLbase or any other database and copy that table definition and data to a new table in any other database. Or you create a complex query using SQLbase or any other database, and then from that query create a new table in any other database. You can receive Excel data from a marketing agency, and then you can create a new table from that Excel file in SQLbase or whatever database you have. You can update those data values using the QSQL activity, using all the power of the SQL language. And then you can create a new table based on that import in SQLbase if you like. Or merge data. Here's the larger example of create a query to retrieve data from a CRM system of a newly owned company, create new local temporary tables, then go ahead and update that data to meet the company's CRM data format. I'm pretty sure the table format and columns and all this stuff needs to be adapted in some way. The keys need to be updated to match the format of the owning company. Export that data to an Excel file and then import that file into the corporate CRM system. What can developers do using Q? They can sync testing and production databases. Actually, I should say development, testing, and production databases. They can create database modification scripts for deployed applications. They can create test data. I think that's one of the important things for developers. You start doing an application and you need some data in your tables. Maybe the database engineers have created a nice data model, and now you need to fill that with some live test data. So you can simulate multi-user access, for example. And developers also need to update and insert data into tables that cannot be maintained by applications. I think that's one usage scenario that's quite common, actually. We have that as well. We have an internal CRM system where we store all your licenses and GLS contract data, for example. And there's one table in there, that's the products table. That table doesn't have an application screen where it can be maintained, so we need to use Q to insert new versions of Team Developer, for example, into that table. Create documentation reports, so create a report that defines the data model of an application. So here's what developers can do. Move data from development to testing and production. Create test data. Create a set of new tables or receive a database creation script from your database engineers that have used data modeling tools for your data model, and then enter sample data for your application testing purposes. You can do XML export. So if a developer needs to provide XML functionality inside his application, he can provide sample data using the XML export capabilities of Q. Create developers documentation. Just create a report that describes the data model, print that report as PDF, and save that PDF in your project repository, whatever that is. And here the application users. Application users actually can create reports that are not part of an application. And I think another important area is they can modify existing application reports. For example, change the logos, slightly change the layout of the report they are printing through the application. They can maintain and manage personal data if allowed to. They can maintain and merge personal Outlook contacts. And again, they can update data not editable via application screens. And again, if allowed to behind it. Database applications kind of work in scenarios where this security is very important. You are working on well-designed data models, and you might not want your users to work on tables directly. Instead, you want to work them using your application. Then actually you can install Q as a read-only version, and users cannot update data that the database user they are using is allowed to update. So create a custom report. You can create a new query for a mass mailing. You can create a report and print that report on paper and mail it out as a mass mailing, for example. Share data, create a new query, export the query results to an Excel file, and share Excel file with colleagues, with customers, whomever you need to share it with. Outlook contracts. Actually, you can create a new table based on an import of Outlook contacts of your local system. You can also import other email contacts from a CSV file into that table then. And so you can mix and match and merge and delete and work on the contacts you have. For example, you import the personal Outlook contacts. That's what you can do. You cannot import the company address book. You can import personal Outlook contacts, and then you can load for example, your mobile phone contacts that you have unloaded in a CSV format, load them into a table, update these data, and upload it back into Outlook and back into the mobile phone if you like. Q connectivity configuration. Actually, Q is using a complete new approach to database connectivity that has also been introduced with Team Developer 5.2 to developers, which is called a new auto-configuration approach. It should be relatively seamless to connect to databases, and Unified Q actually goes ahead and searches and finds all possible database connections on a machine. And it finds SQL-based, Oracle, SQL Server, and ODBC data sources. And these can be configured easily. To connect to those databases, you just have to provide your username and password. And you can alternatively import existing SQLini configurations. I will show you that in detail. So initially, I will show you actually also my SQLini file that for those of you that are going into this level could be quite interesting, I guess. So here's the dialogs that you will see when you use Q. The one in front, the large one, Configure Connections, has several tabs, and every tab is assigned to a database make. You just select the tab of the database you want to configure, and on the right side in that list box you get a list of available databases Oracle provides on this machine here. This actually happens to be my machine, so that's pretty much what you will be seeing in a few minutes. You just provide username and password. You can do a test connection to see if the connection really works, and then apply edits. Those changes are being stored, and then this connection will be displayed in the other dialog that you see on the left, actually this database tree. And this database tree only shows configured connections. So this database, I had to talk to a few customers that already bought Q in the past few days. If you didn't know that, let me just tell you that now we are selling Q since a few days, so you can download a trial version from our website and buy that product as of now. Now coming back to that database tree, the database connections on the left side. Q does not go ahead and reads the SQLini file and then displays what's available from the SQLini file. queue displays what the user has created, what connections a user has created, and the create connections. That's what you see, in the main area on the right side. But I will show you that in detail in a few minutes. So, summarize the features and functionality of queue. Each of these slides now has an image of the ribbon of that activity, actually. Powerful and easy database queries, simple point-and-click query design, draw the table relations, very easy condition settings. You can share the query files, export share query results, and one thing I didn't mention here on the slide is you can also import quest files, of course. For reporting, powerful and easy again, images, graphs, rich text, new, cross-tabular reports, print on paper, RTF, PDF, easy report sharing using PDF files, and then, of course, watermarks as Report Builder 5.2 has. And you see the reporting ribbon at the bottom. End-user data sharing. You can build queries, export that data. You can create a new table from activity, share exported data, and load that exported data into other systems. Or load data files you receive into a database or into a table. Contact management, I think I mentioned that. We don't need to go into that detail here. Database scripting, the SQL activity of queue lets you basically create powerful database scripts. You can do very complex queries like union, subselects, and run and program SQL scripts, and basically execute any SQL against the database, including insert, update, whatever the database can do here. Unified queue components. So this one is actually a pretty interesting slide, contains a lot of information. During installation, you can choose to install Unify as a read-only version, which disallows data being written to the database even when the connected database user has rights to do it. So a full read-only block, so to speak, for users. They won't be able to change things if you don't want them to. You can also install queue full-featured, and then they will be able to update data and tables and things like that, depending on the user rights that user has. Unified Queue includes SQL-Base 11.5, a local database server version, which itself includes SQL-Base Command Center that takes care of scheduled backups and things like that. We have language support built into Queue. It's an installer and a runtime setting for English, German, French, Spanish, and Portuguese. And here are the end-user products, the things that you can get and buy from us. The basic product is the Unified Queue 45-day trial version. You can download that today from our website. This trial version can be activated to a full product, and as I mentioned before, when you have Queue installed as a trial version, then when you start Queue, you will be presented with a dialog that allows you to purchase the product now, and that will direct you to the Unify Online Store. Unfortunately, I just remembered that I already have activated my product, so I can't show you that button. But I will show you the Unify Online Store very quickly, so we cover that as well. And what you can do when you want to purchase that, you buy a single user license of Queue in the online store for the equivalent of $495. There's also a Unified Queue 25 user license and a Queue 50 user license available through Unified Sales. And then this one here, the complementary ISV application deployment, that's the Queue EDP. That allows you to include Queue into your application installer. So if you have created a vertical application, either for your internal use or for your customers' use, then you can include Queue into that, and we will give you all the pieces you need to install Queue with your application. If you're interested in that, please contact Unified Sales for pricing and offers. So, buy Unified Queue now. That's where you can buy Unified Queue. So let me just as, let me close PowerPoint here and let me open the online store, because that's now something I won't be able to do from inside Q, because my version of Q is activated already. Store, here it is. So that's the online store. From the online store, you can buy Q, Report Builder, and SQL-based desktop. Actually, when you click purchase from within Q, you will be redirected right to this page here, and you will be able to buy a quantity of Q licenses, and you can also add GLS to that license. You can pay using your credit card. You can change the currency to US dollar, euro, British pound, Canadian dollar, Australian dollars, or Japanese yen, and those will be converted on a daily currency exchange rate to the US dollar. Okay, online store. I won't buy a license of Q yet now, because then I have to create an expense report for that, and don't want to go through that. Okay, so here is Q. Let me just enlarge the screen here so we have a larger ribbon. So when Q comes up, you see the activities ribbon being in front. The activities ribbon basically lets you choose what kind of database you want to connect to and what things you want to do. You can do things like create something new, a new query, a new report. You can create new SQL. You can create a new table, or you can open existing things like open a query, open a report, open SQL, and open table. And the easiest thing to do, of course, is opening a table. And if you press that from the ribbon, then you get the Q login dialog. Now this is the dialog that we just talked about in the presentation. And what you can see is that I do have now a server 1 configured here. You can see that I have a store encrypted password checked here, so I don't have to type in the password all the time I want to connect. That is being maintained by Q. And let me just do one thing, test connection. Okay, so that works. I can connect to SQL-based. Now, for the power users, let me just switch to the installation directory and open the SQL-ini file that I'm using here. So basically, there is a number of servers defined here for SQL-based. You see those server path statements in the WinClient.ws32 area. There is a number of COM-DLLs defined. And then, for example, the SQL ODB32, SQL Aura 32. And for Oracle, actually, and also for ODBC, for those two sections here, I don't have any remote DB name statements defined. And that's something that you actually don't need to do with Q, because Q goes ahead and finds these connections itself. And if it does find a connection, then Q will add a connection string at the bottom here. So the layout of a Q SQL-ini is pretty easy, pretty straightforward, but might be unusual to look at for people that are used to use SQL-ini in the past. So, as you could see, there was one connection defined, and that's this one here. Now, let me connect to that database. And now I get a list of available tables in that database, and just select the company table here. Expand that, okay. So here's the company table, and this is actually using the new unified grid, where you can click into a column to sort on that column, ascending, descending, sort by phone number, very interesting. You can you can group by column. Sorry about that, that's German now. The grid detects that I'm using a German window, so it's providing the interface here in German. So I group by country here, and you see the grid groups by country. I can also switch on the group by box, and then I can use multiple columns here. Country, state, zip that I want to group by, and you see how that layout changes here. And now the grid also has the table activity lets you print content in two ways. You can quick print those contents here. Let me do that, and you see a print preview of that, and clicking print will print that on a paper. Or you can create a report, which would then be a real query and report file that would be created, that you can have a lot of influence on formatting and things like that. Okay, let me just close that again, and let's open a table again. About settings. Now, as you can see on the ribbon, there's a lot of things you can import and export. Let me start with exporting things. I can export these table contents to an HTML file. I save that on my desktop. Select a theme for that. Today I want to use the purple theme. And here we go. Now I've created a HTML file that includes the settings, the style settings that you clicked on. And here's the unloaded file that you can now share. That's a standalone file that doesn't need any CSS or other files with it, so that's an easy to share HTML file here. So where's Q here? You can, of course, export to Excel, and exporting to Excel means export to an XLS file, not to a comma-separated values file or a XLS file that contains HTML. That's some tools do that. This is a plain Excel file, and you see it's formatted. It's got nice column descriptors, and then the column and row values below it. And it's a real Excel file. We've used the XLS format to be compatible with all the available Office versions from, I think, I don't know, 2001 to 2010 or something. So here's the exported Excel. Okay, so now I want to do something slightly more difficult and connect to a different database. And I go to, let me just increase the size here a little bit. I have all the at the bottom of the queue screen, you can always see what database is the current active one. There's database server.island and user sysadm. And let me now connect to a, let's say, SQL Server database. And now I go ahead and click on the New Connections button. I can see in my tree I don't have connections available, so I go on to Add New Connections, and the first tab is SQL Base. Then you have Oracle, SQL Server, ODBC, and Import SQLi9. I want to use SQL Server. Click on the available data sources, provide my username and password. And then do a test connection to verify it. So that was successful. Oh, that was pretty quick. Apply edits, okay. And now I got a connection to SQL Server here in my database connections tree. And if I click connect now, I'm actually connected to SQL Server, as you can see at the bottom here. So let me now create a new table in SQL Server based on the Excel export that I just created from a SQL-based table. I have to give that table a name. And then choose from File, Excel, and choose from my desktop that Excel file that I just created. Now Q goes ahead, analyzes that file, and proposes a layout of the table. If that layout of that table you don't like that layout, for example, or you don't like how certain columns are defined, or you want to increase the length of character columns, things like that, you can do that now. Change to edit mode here. And then, for example, set the company ID to primary key, and you see then not null is automatically switched on. And with apply edits, this table will be defined in SQL Server. And then the table will be opened, the data will be loaded, and again, with apply edits, we can save these contents into that database table. And now I got that table open supplied from SQL Server. Something I didn't show you before in the table activity is you can also switch to edit mode there and go ahead and change company names, things, zip codes, and then apply edits, saves back these changes. Now let me export the contents of this table to a comma-separated values file. And now you see we have the .csv extensions here, file extension here. I can specify my list and decimal separator values, just keep the standards here. And Q wants to know if I want to have a first row that describes the columns. I want to have that in my file, yes. And now let's have a look at the desktop again, and you see there's a CSV file. My system thinks that CSV is assigned to Excel. I just want to open that with a different editor. Use Notepad++ here. And you can see the column description that has been created in the first line, and then the data columns below, the data rows below, in plain text format here. Now, let me go ahead and connect to another database yet. I want to create a new connection to Oracle. XE, again, username and password. Test connection. Ping, this is your Oracle wake-up call. Yeah, it works. Apply edits. Okay. And now I got an Oracle connection here as well, and I connect as well. So you see now I'm connected to database XE user Martin, and let me create again a new table here. New table from file. Now let's use comma-separated values. And here's the comma-separated values file that I just exported before. Again, Q analyzes that file and proposes how to create that table. If you want to change that, go into edit mode, set primary key columns, change column length, data length, string length things. So you now see that for Oracle we are using the varchar2 column type here. Apply edits, and that table is being created in Oracle now. Now the table opens and the data will be loaded, and saving again will save that data to an Oracle database. So now we created tables in SQL Server, in Oracle, use several export formats that Q provides. Now let's do something more complicated. Actually create a query in SQL base, export that query, and use those query exports to create a new table in another database. I think, yeah, let's use Oracle, I think. I just close all these things here, all those activities. Now the active database, let's just connect to server 1 island. And now I want to create a new query. Let me do that by choosing the tables that I want to use and join. So you can now go ahead, define conditions like country equals, and then double-click into the values, and you get a list of values. United States, sort by company name. So go ahead, define that query. And when you're done, that query will be opened in data mode. Now, from this data mode, you can save that file as an Excel file, export that to an Excel, this query. So island sysadmin company contact.xls will be created and has been created now. Let's just have a look here. Company contact, yes. So this is the join that I created and has been exported to Excel now. Company and contact data merged together. And now let me go into connect to Oracle again. Create a new table from Excel to set in company contact. And here we go. Now it's loading the data, proposing how the table should be defined. And I think I want to leave it with this. I don't want to have a primary key because from the join I have multiple keys here. So just ignore that. Yes. So go to edit mode. I can't use company.companyID as a column name here. Apply edits. There's no primary key defined. Okay. Table has been created. Load data and apply edits. Now I've created a new table from a join in Oracle via Excel export, really. Okay. Let's have a little look at the SQL activity. Oh no, I need to go into a different database again. Database server 1 island. OpenSQL. I have a script here, though I don't have to type that now. Execute this. You can toggle timer on to see how quickly that executes. You can do updates if you like to. I don't want to do that. Do a rollback. Save the script files and do all the SQL you want to do. Save the files. All the SQL tasks that you want to do you can do via Q. Now let's have a look at the query activity again. Let's create again another query here. Company and invoice. Well, you've seen conditions, sort, group by. So here's the data, and now you can go ahead and go into report preview. And here's the predefined report. You can now go into design mode. If you do a right click here, you have things like watermark, all the report preferences and things. You can do all the formatting that is available in Report Builder. Actually, let me add a watermark here. A text watermark. Urgent in a large font. Use a dark red wash out, so kind of standing in the back. And if you go to preview mode, then you see, well, that is a pretty wide report now. I would need to change the paper format and things like that, but you see the idea of that. And now you've designed your report, and you want to share that. You just go into print PDF here. Save that file as a PDF file. I want to have all pages. Set certain PDF settings that allow you to influence the quality and size of the PDF file. And here you are. Let's have a look here on my desktop. Yep. Here's the PDF file that has been created from Report Builder using the from Q using the watermark. Now you can go ahead and share that file with your customers, colleagues. Maybe it was an invoice that you want to send to your customers, things like that. So that is a quick overview of Q, really. Now it's up to you to post some questions.
Great, thanks, Martin. So what we'll do is we'll open it up for questions now. And again, just use the question mark button on your WebEx toolbar. We'll go silent for about a minute here as we collect the questions. We'll come back on and read them and answer them. and we'll go from there.
If you're interested, MySQL INI has changed, and the two connections I defined are now appearing as connection strings below here.
All right, well, we're going to start going through the questions. And again, as you think of ones, go ahead and post them. We'll continue to go through them. So the first one is, and Martin, this one's for you. Is Q connected to multiple databases simultaneously, or can it?
Oh, yes, you can. You've seen that initially in the beginning, when I did the first for the first two tables, I opened a table in SQL Base, I created a table in SQL Server, and then I created a table in SQL, in Oracle. And all these activities have been open at the same time in Q. Yes, that's absolutely possible.
Great. Next question. What is the roadmap for Q?
The roadmap, actually I can't tell you too much about that yet. We're still working on defining the 1.1 release, so can't disclose that yet.
Okay. Well, one thing I want to mention on that is, and Martin brings up a good point, we just launched 1.0, so we really want to get your feedback, on what direction we should take this. And just as a good example, one of the things Martin touched on in his presentation on Q was the whole ability to manage Outlook contacts, and that actually came from one of the DevCons, not this year, but the year before. I believe that came out of one of the DevCons. Correct me if I'm wrong, Martin, but
No, that's right.
From some user feedback suggesting that. So we definitely want to see what you guys are looking for in the product and incorporate that in. So definitely do that. And Martin, how would you suggest that they provide that input? Should they provide it to their Unify representatives, or how should they do that?
Yes, that's certainly a way, but you can also post that to the Unify forums. We have created a whole new section for Q, including future feature suggestions and ideas. So whatever you want, and make sure it arrives. Well, if you post it to the forums, I will sure monitor that.
Okay, great. Next question. When will it work with Data Server?
That is planned for the 1.1 release, certainly. Just at the moment, I can't tell you yet when that will be, because we want to wait for maybe a few weeks, months to get feedback from customers and to learn what needs to be put into the 1.1 release.
All right. Oh, we got a very, very excited. They like that answer, so they're looking forward to 1.1. Next question, and this one came on the chat. So again, please use the Q&A if you can, but we'll try and catch these over in the chat as well. How can I create graphics/diagrams in reports? Is there a query activity like in Quest?
Yes, actually, you do that like in Report Builder. You can place reports. You can see that here, the graph item. You can place graph items into a report and do that like in Report Builder.
Great. Next question: is it possible to make a pivot table and drill down?
No, unfortunately not. That's not possible. You can export to Excel and do that in Excel if you need to.
All right, next question. What's the best way? It looks like English may not be the first language here, but I think what they're looking for is, can you talk a little bit more about embedding Q into an application, and is that just around team developer applications?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Actually, it's not only around team developer applications. It's a package that we call the Q EDP, and that will give you actually the sources of our installer and all the files that you need to install and the installation instructions. so that you can create your own installer and you can install Q with anything you want. It can be, I know, a Visual Studio application, whatever you have in mind. And so that is absolutely open. It's just that we have many team developer applications or application developers out there, so I'm always using that example.
Got it. Great. In fact, one thing I may want to add on to that is some folks I noticed on here are from the Unify side. They used RPT, and just to make a distinction there, when you embed Q into an application here, it's going to actually open up. You have to open up the IDE of Q, if you will. Is that correct, Martin?
Yes. Yeah, it's not a background process that executes a report and creates an output file now. You have to open the IDE. It's very much user-oriented, yes.
Yes, I thought I'd make that distinction on that whole embedding, just in case I'm catching the translation of this question right, just making sure they understand what we mean by embedding it. Now, there's a question here, plans to have it available on the web. I think, we may need a little more clarification on that. We obviously have it available for purchase on the online store on the web. That's one possible angle to that question. The other one is, I guess, make it a web-based
tool.
That's
probably a web-based tool is probably what people are looking for. That's something we will need to look into for the future with the TD6 technologies we are creating. It actually might be possible that we are doing that, being able to run that as a browser-based applications. But that's something we need to look into when TD6 is available.
Great. Is there a graph activity like in Quest?
There's no explicit graph activity, but you can do graphs through a report.
Great. And, one thing, and this is from me, this isn't a question I came across. You had mentioned how, and I just want to make sure everyone hears this, you had mentioned it briefly in there, how Q can read existing Quest files.
Yeah.
And can you spend a moment on that in terms of, is there certain versions or certain extensions or what that's about?
Yes. Well, actually, it's very easy. What you do is, if you have old Quest files, you just go to the Activities menu and go like Open Query Data, and you see it lists the file types for Quest as well. So you just open the existing file, and you should be good to go. Great.
All right. That's all the questions that I see right now. So if you still have some, go ahead and post them, and we'll answer them here as we close down the webinar. So first of all, we want to thank you for participating. We hope you found it of value. And when you exit out of the webinar, you'll get a little questionnaire. Please take a moment, let us know what you thought about the webinar. Were there things that you liked? Were there things that you wanted to see and didn't? And also let us know if there are certain topics you'd like to see in the future, whether it's this product or some of the other ones we do the webinars on, like Team Developer and NXJ and Report Builder and so forth. I see another question that came across, so we're going to go ahead and answer this one before we end it, which is, can you develop queries or reports and publish to other customers?
Yes, you can create queries and reports. Yeah, actually, that's something my demonstration is missing, how you save all these files and do that. For every activity you do, you can save that file and give that file to other users, customers, and they can execute that using their queue, their personal queue, yes.
Great. All right, well, that's all the time that we have. Again, we want to thank you. Take a moment to do those surveys here at the end. Let us know what you thought and what we can be doing in the future webinars. And again, Martin and I thank you, and have a great day.
Thank you, everybody.